Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kathryn Garforth from the Right to Read Initiative. And today we are having Shawna Wood from Victoria join us for a second day, and she's giving us a peek inside her classroom. Now, I must say, I love these episodes because it's amazing to see what our teachers are doing in their classrooms to promote reading development. And I love learning about new tools and the little tips and tricks they've developed over the years. Thank you for joining me again today, Shawna. Do you want to give our listeners a little bit of background about who you are, where you're teaching, and what the makeup is in your classroom?
All right. So I am Shawna Wood. I teach grade 1s and 2s at a school here in Victoria. I've been a teacher for about 16, 17 years now, but at the same school, this school, for 13 years. The school I'm at, we serve a mixed socioeconomic neighborhood. So we've got quite a diverse set of learners here. We've got families, immigrant families, refugee families, very high Indigenous population. We've got families who are experiencing a lot of hardships right now, housing instability, food insecurity, a lot of those kind of issues. So they're families that are well-meaning, well-intentioned, but they are definitely overburdened and stressed. So some of our students bring that to the classroom, and we do our best to serve them.
Well, that's great. And it's important to realize what your students are bringing into the class with them, because it does impact their ability to learn.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So today you're going to be showing us your favorites and some of the things you have in your classroom. And before we started, we kind of talked about looking at those 5 pillars of reading instruction: phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and reading comprehension. So why don't we start off with phonological awareness? Now, you're working with students that are in grade 1 and grade 2. So how are you doing it at this grade level in your classroom?
Certainly changes over the year. We do things slightly different at the beginning of the year than we do at the end because of the natural progression. But I rely heavily, I would say, on Dr. David Kilpatrick's 1-minute activities. So that's a really great start. That I focus on that. I've got things like a deck. This is 50 phonemic awareness activities, and it's each card. You just pull out a card and there's all sorts of different activities. This one here is about rhyme, and which is the odd one out. And it's just a quick thing that you can do a time filler with, or especially at the beginning of the year. This year I had a small group of students, including a student that has EA support, and I could just give her that deck. She could just go through them. The cards are numbered, and each day she could do a quick little activity with them in a way that would meet their needs. So this is something that's it's from Junior Learning. And they've got a few different sets like this, but it's just a quick and easy, don't have to think too much about it, little activity to fill in. I do a lot of my phonological awareness at this point during transition times, to be honest. It's something that you can do when they're getting ready to go for recess. They're in a lineup, you're waiting in the hallway to go into the music room. Washing hands, we do a lot of that, or during snack time. So things I might do at that time. Favorite this year, I had no idea, was we'd already taught digraphs. They loved when I started wandering around the room, and we called it digraph names. And so if I have a student named Bob, then I would take away the first initial sound and add let's try thob or shob, and they think this is hilarious, and then they do it with me. So we're doing a little bit of a manipulation there. Mm-hmm. If it's snack time, I can wander around the room and say, oh, you have strawberries. How many syllables in strawberries? And who has a snack that has the same number of syllables? Or can someone think of a word that rhymes with strawberries? So trying to fit those things in throughout the day in little games or little things like that. Or, you know, if we're in the hallway, like I said, and I'm trying to keep them quiet while we're waiting to get into the music room, I might say, okay, I'm thinking of a secret word, and the sounds are b, and then they have to be really quiet to hear all those sounds, and then they have to put it together, blend it together, and give me crab, or you know, whatever word I think of. Sometimes I'll do things like a secret code. You know, we have to go change our shoes to go outside, so the secret password is a word that starts with, and maybe I'll have a blend and I'll say it starts with st, and so then they are all trying to think of a word that starts with st. Just little things like that help the day go a lot quicker. Or I shouldn't say quicker, but it certainly helps me sneak in those things without having to do a full lesson on it. A big one, another like thing that you can purchase that I've really enjoyed for my phonological awareness are these CVC objects. They're magnets, and everything in the box is a CVC picture. And so I might do things like, you could pull one out and just at random pull one out and ask the class to think of something that rhymes with that picture. So like if I take one out, we've got a pig. So think of a word that rhymes with pig. Or I could expand it to think of a word that has the same beginning sound or the same ending sound, or however. We can dump all the magnets out and I can ask them to find their rhyming pairs. Or I could ask them to sort them based on the medial sound. So sort them all based on the vowels, so all the I's and A's and what have you. One other thing, I mean, this isn't phonological awareness, but just for this activity or this resource, I might say, okay, pull 2 or 3 out and then make up a sentence and then write it. And so because they're CVC and it's decodable, they can then make a sentence of, the pig has a pen. And it's an easy way to do it. It encourages them to do some writing, and it's at their level. So this is also junior learning, and they're just CVC objects. I think it's part of the Rainbow series, but they have these same magnets for blends, and they have the same one for CVCE words. And I have found this to be a really great, fun resource to use with my students.
Well, the fact that they're magnetic adds to the way that you can use them with your, you know, assuming that you have a whiteboard in your classroom that has that magnetic capability, or if you're working with cookie sheets and giving them a cookie sheet and alphabet magnet tiles, that's amazing. I haven't seen those before.
Yeah, those. And when I first came across them, unfortunately, they've gone up in price. I found these, I want to say last year, maybe the spring of last year, and the box cost about $13. And I would like to expand and buy the other ones, but at this point, I'm finding them more for like $25. I think, you know, everything's more expensive these days. So unfortunately, so I keep my eye out for those because I do want to get more of those and do the other sets because I think it's a great resource. Other phonological awareness things that I might do. I doubt, you know, a little bit of Haggerty. We certainly put in a little bit of Haggerty, but even if I'm starting a new, you know, we're doing a new phonics skill, I might try and find a few images and I'll just put those on my projector. I'll have them projected. And so there could be a, just like the CVC objects, but now they're just pictures on the board. And I'll do the same thing. There might be 5 pictures up there and I'll say, I'm thinking of a word that has, and I'll give the 3 or 4 sounds that are in the word. And then they just looking at the board have to think of the one that I'm coming up with, or I'm giving them the clues for. They love that kind of thing.
Yeah. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to remind listeners and viewers who are listening live, if you go to the replay, we are going to have all these resources listed so that you can access them in case you're wondering, because I love those magnets. I think that's going to go in my cart soon.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. So we've talked about phonological awareness. How about phonics?
So phonics, I think it's all sort of tied together a bit. At the beginning, obviously, I want to make sure that all my students know their letter names and letter sounds. So that would be a beginning spot for me. So just as an entry into phonics, I might have an activity like these ones are little puzzles where you have to match up the capital letter with the lowercase letter. And there is a little image as well. That's the initial sound. Just a little extra hands-on practice for those kids who need it. But I also have things that don't cost any money. Like I went to the beach a couple years ago, collected a bunch of rocks, brought them home and wrote letters on them. So then I might give the kids a bag of rocks and say, put these into alphabetical order. Or Scrabble tiles, you know, you find those at garage sales, or games that are missing pieces and stuff like that. I just throw all the Scrabble tiles together, and I might ask the kids to put those in order. Or like you were saying, those cookie sheets, I went to the dollar store, I've got 12 of those because I use those so often with a set of magnetic letters, and that's just more opportunity to manipulate the letters, to put them in order, to recognize them. So that would be like my entry level for phonics. But then once we're going, I try and connect it all together. So let's say I've gathered a few samples for if I were teaching AI and AY. Mm-hmm. I might start the beginning, like day one, not even looking at the letters, not even looking at the graphemes, but just focusing on the phoneme, just thinking about the long A sound. And I've got these picture sorts. So no words attached to it. I don't really do any sorts where it's a word sort with the actual word on it, but a picture sort instead. So they really have to tune into the sound. And in this one with the AI and the AY, they're listening, is that long A at the end of the word or in the middle of the word? And then they have to cut out the pictures and sort them based on where they hear the long A sound. And then, of course, I'm trying to teach them that if it's in the middle, it's the AI. If it's at the end, it's the AY. Mm-hmm. So this resource I rely on a lot because the creator of this one, all picture sorts, all based on spelling patterns. And I would say there's one for almost everything that I teach for the grade 1, grade 2 level anyway. So I might start with that. Let's say if I was doing long A for a week, I might start with this. I would move into some word chaining and practice that. So you're getting a little bit of your spelling, but you're still focusing on the phonics part of things. So I, for years, tried to come up with my own word chaining activities, and it's hard to do on the fly. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing it on my own, I wasn't really following a scope and sequence or anything explicit. So I did purchase a resource that has it, not necessarily that I followed this particular scope and sequence, but I can find the long A's, and in it, I can just, let me see, I've got them color coded, because that way it makes it easier for me to find. I can just open it up and I've got 10 words ready to go where you only have to change either the initial sound or the ending sound, and it will match whatever I'm doing. So it might be like this one is the long A for the AY pattern. So I could say right lay, now change O, and we're going to turn it into ray, and we're going to turn ray into tray. So all those are done for me, and it's explicit and it matches what we're doing. So I want it to be complementary. So I've done my picture sort, and I can add in a word sort that's matching that. That might be one day, and that the next day I might do more of a word mapping activity.
Can you just say where you got the word chaining from?
Yeah, so the word chaining, actually, it's the same creator as the picture sorts. And it was a Teachers Pay Teachers purchase. And I know you really have to be discriminating. You have to be careful what you're purchasing there and make sure that it's not just a buzzword that you're buying, but an actual resource that aligns with science. But I do this word chaining one and the picture sort both come from a creator named Campbell Creates Readers. Campbell Creates Readers. And yeah, both of these I have found rather inexpensive, but also super quick and easy to use. I cut these out, like I said, I color coded them. I put them on a little ring, and I keep this ring right by my teaching area so I can grab it at any time. It's really quick and easy. And I've got a few things hanging there now just so I can, when you've got those 2 minutes to fill, I can be really purposeful and not waste any time.
And I love hearing how while you're working on the phonics, you're also working on the spelling, because reading and writing are so, they're the opposite of each other, right? Breathing in is reading, breathing out is writing. And we want to enforce those skills because it really does help our students with the orthographic mapping. Now, do you have resources that allow you to use decodable texts following the same?
Yeah. So as I keep going with my same AY, I have an activity like this where we might have done some word mapping with Elkonin boxes, and maybe we would have done that more together. This is more of an independent activity. Again, reinforcing the same thing. So there'd be a picture of a rain, and then there's the boxes where they can either tap it, they could put a little stamp there, we can use a little manipulative, they could go A, N, so they'd only use the 3 boxes. And then there's a space to actually write out the full graphemes. And then it goes down. The next one's brain, and there's mail, and there's nail, and there's the images right there for them, and it's all ready to go. But I wouldn't do that on day 1. This would be maybe day 2 or 3. We've done some other activities. We've done a little whiteboard work, the word chaining, and now they're ready to do something a little bit more independent, still using the same phonics skill. And I just think the more exposures they have to it, the more ways they're exposed to it, the better. And making sure that it's all integrated and purposeful. So on a day that we do that, I might also include some simple word level reading. So this one has a mix of words, individual words. We're not even at sentence level. It's just words, and it's AI, AY words all mixed up. And I would have them, number 1, grab a highlighter and highlight the targeted skill that we're learning. Number 2, you read it to yourself. Number 3, you read it to a partner in the classroom, and there's a little spot at the bottom to put a little check mark. Yep, read it to myself, read it to a partner. And then for the 3rd box, I encourage them to send it home and read it at home. And I don't want to put too much pressure on the families that I work with, so I keep it optional. I say you can take it home. You could practice spelling them. You could play some games with the words. I've got a little list of things that they can do with the words. If you read them at home and an adult puts a little check mark there, bring it back to me and I'll give you a sticker. And so, but it's not obligatory. I'm not putting any pressure on them. It's just, if you'd like to do it, sure, bring it in, I'll give you a sticker. Love it. And then once we've gotten past that, I do at that point, maybe the next day I've got passages at different levels. You know, this would be a more advanced passage. There's more words on the page. But again, these passages are very controlled, and it would just be focusing on following a scope and sequence of what has been taught and what's new. So again, I might get them to highlight, go through, highlight the parts that were targeted, the AI and the AY, practice reading it. This is where we're going to switch pillars for a minute and go into some fluency. The repeated readings part of my fluency, but also I try and pull in a little bit of technology. So I've got some iPads, and I'll get the students to take a picture of a passage or a sentence, and then I've taught them to record themselves reading it, and they record it over and over, and they know how to delete it as well. So they record it, they delete it, they record it, they delete it until they feel like they read it really smoothly, and then they can bring it to me. I do have some decodable books in my classroom. We've got these ones which are from Whole Phonics, and so I'm lucky I've got 2 sets of these in my classroom. I do find, as much as I love these, they're engaging, the pictures are interesting, the stories are witty, they're glossy and fun and pretty, but my one problem with them is there is a lot of text per page. And especially for our kids who are still in the beginning stage, and there's a lot of those connections are still being made in the brain, it can be quite laborious to get through even a page because there's so much text. There's like 4 or 5 sentences on a page. So this isn't always great. So that's where some of my passages come in, or the word level. And I do have a few just where it's just sentence level. So maybe they'll get a page where there'll just be 5 sentences on a page for the whole day, as opposed to 5 sentences per page in an entire book, because that could be pretty daunting for some of them. So it's thinking about that. I also, because I'm pretty confident with a computer, I've made up a ton of games that match whatever skill. So this is really simple. It's just a path you roll the dice, you move your piece, wherever you land, you read the word. And so then they're getting to more reading practice with a partner, so it's fun. Also from that same creator, Campbell Creates Readers, this is another little ring that I keep close to my desk. And this one, I guess, is going back a bit to the phonological awareness. She's got lists here, so I would find the long A page, and she will have a list of words that have 3 phonemes in them, or 4 phonemes, going all the way up to 5 phonemes. And so I can sit and quickly have those on the top of my mind. So rather than having to come up with them, I can just look at the list here. I'll just find the long A one and say a, and then the kids can say pain. And so we're adding just a little bit more of that targeted skill. We're really paying attention to what sound are we listening for? What was the spelling? Where did we hear it, in the middle or the end? So we can start to learn some of that. That's a great resource. And then when it comes down to it, I haven't put together a vowel valley yet. I haven't had one this year, so I've done something a little different for my vowels. I have a wall where I keep my long vowels, and I think I sent you a picture of that one. So that's my sound wall. That's with all my consonants. And then I've got just on, I actually still have a chalkboard in my classroom. I don't use it, but I use the magnetic part, and I've created these little cards, and I've just found these pictures online for free. And as I've taught what skills, like I'm saying, the AI and AY is my example today, I would just start adding these to my magnetic chalkboard and under my long A. And that way I've got them up there. I've got little magnets on the back, and then it's there for reference. So the kids can see as I teach things, as they've learned them it's there to review. But also sometimes now that we've taught a bunch of them, like I've got our open syllable A and EIGH, they love that one. EY sometimes, or their A consonant E. Having all those on the board, sometimes before the kids arrive in the morning, I remove all the long A ones. And they'll come in and they'll say, oh, the long A's are missing. So yeah, they are. Get your whiteboard and you write down all the ways that you can spell the long A. And so then they challenge each other. And if you found 2 or 3, good for you. If you found 4 or 5, great. And then as they start telling me, oh, I found this one, I'll say, okay, yeah. And I put it back up on the board. And then we build the board again. And that's just a quick little review we can do first thing in the morning. So I know in a vowel valley, I think these are supposed to be put up in order of frequency, but because
with vowel, yeah, it is frequency, but it's also you have the depth for the pronunciation of and the shape of the mouth.
Yeah.
As
yes.
You see the sounds.
Yeah. So with the actual graphemes, where it would come up based on frequency, these end up getting mixed up all the time. They're not necessarily in frequency. It's more just how I've introduced them. And then, like I said, I pull them down and put them back up, and they end up in all sorts of different orders all the time. But this is another way of having a reference in the classroom to see what we've learned and keep track of what we've learned, but also just when someone's stuck on a word, I can say, okay, well, I can hear that long vowel in the middle of the word. How do we spell it in the middle of the word? And if they're really stuck, I say, okay, go over and look at the board. And then they come back and say, it's AI. So, just a quick way to look at it. I think that covers a lot of my sort of integrated view of my phonics and my phonological awareness.
That's amazing. And I love how you have these resources at hand, so you don't have to come up with words off the top of your head, because I find that the hardest thing. I can come up with a million of them when I'm not trying, but when I'm on the spot needing to give an example, it's just not there. And that must also reduce the time that you need to put into lesson planning, because you have that resource there to use, and you can just write down, okay, well, we're going to do the word chaining today.
Yeah.
Turn to the page, you can flip it open, have a little sticky on it. And that's also helpful for in the occasions that you need a teacher on call or a substitute teacher, because it's not just like, oh, I need to write it all down. It's already there. Here you go. This is what we're working on.
Yeah. And it's also because in what I'm doing, what I'm describing, we don't do the same thing every day. We don't do the same thing every week, but a lot of it has been repeated all year long. The picture sorts, they know how to do the picture sorts. So it's not like I'm having to reteach a new activity every time. They understand how the word mapping activities work and how the passages and the fluency and even using the iPads to record themselves. And reading it, highlighting the targeted skill and reading it to themselves. All those things are familiar activities. So it's, I can throw in new things here and there, but not have to reteach how to do the routine each time, which is fabulous. This time saver. One more thing for phonics. This book, there's a bee on your thumb. This is a fun book. It's full of poems that are all phonics-based poems. And you can, you're teaching the AI, you can look through there and there will be a poem on AI. And they're great pictures. The kids are always asking, can we read another poem? And if I put that under the document camera too, then they can read along with me and they can see how often that AI pattern shows up in the poem. And some of them are just fun little stories too, to remember, like, why is there a bee on your thumb? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's by Colette Hiller and Tor Freeman. It's a good book. Wonderful. So that one, it just sits right on my shelf, again, right where I'm teaching, so I can grab that at any time and it's ready to go.
Awesome. All right. So I think we've covered a lot if we're thinking of the simple view of reading of that word recognition side. Now, when it comes to the language comprehension side, what are those pieces that you pull in? Because still in that grade 1-2 level, a lot of work, what you're working on is the language comprehension piece to build eventually to the reading comprehension piece, but as we're still learning those reading skills. What are you using?
Yeah, so we do a lot of read alouds in my classroom, and that's where my focus, my comprehension. Like you were saying, they don't have the decoding abilities quite yet to really get much of the comprehension out of it. They can think at a higher level than they can read right now and have greater conversations, deeper conversations. So we do a ton of great read alouds. We've studied a lot of different authors. They're so excited. There's, they love Mo Willems and The Pigeon, and there's certain authors that they've really attached to as every year. But focusing through bringing joy to books, bringing modeling good fluency, modeling a love of books is all done through our read alouds. And that's also where we gather a lot of our vocabulary. So I sent you a picture of what we just call it our interesting words wall. And whatever book, and it entirely comes from the students. So the books that we're reading, I often stop and ask, do you know what that means? Or we discuss what a word means. We might act it out or what have you. But every so often they'll say, let's add that one to the wall. And then once it's been added to the wall, they're encouraged to use it in their writing. They're encouraged to use it just throughout the classroom. So, when you've got 21 students in a classroom, it's important that everyone remembers to push their chair in because it's tripping. It can be dangerous. And just yesterday, a student was pushing on all the chairs going, oh, there's so many hazards around here. And, just hearing them use these words spontaneously, that's the ultimate. But and then they're so proud of themselves when they can use it in their writing as well. Mm-hmm. So that's just a way that they're encouraged to just constantly be on the radar, having it on their radar to find interesting words as I'm reading. So that's just where for vocabulary development, we put that there. And then for great read alouds, there's so many fabulous picture books out there.
I just wanted to just take a moment on this interesting words wall. Yeah. So these are words that at the grade level that you're teaching, we're not expecting them to know or have the skills to do this. But when we're looking at differentiated instruction, this is giving some of those students that are at the higher end of reading the opportunity to learn these words and have the exposure to them. And you can use that incidental teaching as you're doing this. So while it's not explicitly part of your phonics program, you can still have some of these conversations and, you have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words with the OUS suffix.
Yeah.
And, that can bring about conversations about morphology. And you also have 2 with FUL. And these are things that, can we find any commonalities in these words? And I think they're a great, conversation starter when you have those 5 minutes that you're waiting for the bell to ring or next thing to happen.
Yeah, another extension of that is sometimes we'll count the syllables in there, or if we were doing blends, I might say, can you find a blend in on our interesting word wall? Or we're working on some R-controlled vowels. So again, see if you can find an R-controlled vowel in there, or how many digraphs can you see on our interesting wall? Little tiny bits that you can just throw in here and there, and they're curious about it. And then I think that quick little snippets like that has led them to be super curious about words everywhere else. When we're out in public, when we're walking down the hall, they're looking for it. And I can hear them say, oh, there's a digraph, as we walk by somebody else's bulletin board. And I love that. And they love that it's empowering for them, because they know what that is, that unit is. I think that they're encouraged to find things more, because it's exciting. They're little detectives.
Well, and I love that you're using the language, like the blends and the digraphs and the R-controlled, because it's giving them the understanding, and it's not just saying, well, it's just because.
Yeah.
Because kids don't like hearing that.
Yes. And I dabbled with using the language last year and really committed to it this year. I couldn't imagine going back. They absolutely love it. I think the only word, and I already used it, was they're empowered. They really, really attach to this. And same with suffix. That's the base word, that's the suffix. They get a kick out of it. And a few of them come back saying, my mom didn't know what a digraph was, so I had to tell her. So they get to be the teachers. They think it's great.
It's empowering, and the amount of language that these kids can absorb is amazing. And, when we're looking at the amount of vocabulary that needs to be taught, and that children absorb, if we're not using it in the conversations that we're having with our students, and we're leaving it up to chance that they do become fluent readers and have the accessibility to books with this quality language in their home, it's leaving it up to chance. But the fact that you're able to incorporate it into your classroom and your dialogue with them is amazing.
Thank you. The Peter Reynolds has a book called The Word Collector. And that book is sort of is the springboard for our interesting words wall. In that book, there's this character who just collects words, and they're interesting words, and does all these different things with the words, and then lets all the words go and shares all these words with other people, essentially. And that's what I'm hoping my students will do, is share these words with other people. And it's a great book to model that too, that vocabulary is fabulous. It's so interesting. But staying on the comprehension side of things, there's no shortage, like I said, of fabulous books. This for read alouds, but this book is called The Ramped Up Read Aloud. This is a fabulous resource. I give this to any new teacher that I come across, or student teacher. They've got fabulous book recommendations, but there's fabulous lesson ideas to go along with it, and good questions, comprehension questions to go with it, things that you might not have thought of. When you read a book yourself, you might see, oh, there's there's one way I can take it, but this book shows you 3 other avenues that you could take. And there's a lot of vocabulary work in here to go along with those picture books. So it's called The Ramped Up Read Aloud by Maria Walther. This one's a really fun book, and it's not too expensive. So just for the teacher resource, she covers over 100 books in this. It's fabulous. Another, I mean, this is an old one now, but Adrienne Gear's Reading Power. She, again, for comprehension, she's got a lot of good stuff in here. And then for fluency, the Mega Book of Fluency. This is a really great one because there's a ton of ideas in here for different ways to practice without boring them, without just saying read it over and over again. There's a lot of just ways to make it more creative. And that's Timothy Rosinski.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he has a lot of great word chaining resources as well.
Yes, I've got a couple of those.
Wonderful. So when you're looking at the repeated readings that you're doing with your students, and you're using the iPads for them to record, you said that there's 12 of them, but you have pretty much double the students. What are the other students doing while half the class has the iPads? Are they practicing, or?
They might be practicing with a partner. They might be still working on some of the word mapping activities while some of them are doing their reading that day. Maybe we'll do a little switch 15 minutes later. Maybe you'll get to use the iPads the next day. It's such a regular part. It's not like the kids are saying, I didn't get a turn on the iPad. They know it'll come later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't had much of an issue with that. But yeah, like they can be doing, like I said, so they could be doing some word chaining. They could be doing they could be playing games while other kids are practicing their fluency. Yeah, other activities. So one thing I would like to maybe hone in on a bit more next year is the literacy centers. This year I've been trying to really, be explicit. And so I'm still very much controlling all their practice, their independent practice. And I think next year it could be a little bit more of a center, that fluency part.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, when we spoke yesterday, you talked about screening.
Mm-hmm.
How are you using that to inform your instruction? And in the classroom, are you doing mainly whole group, or are you doing those small group?
A little bit of both, for sure. I think I try and make sure that everyone in the class is exposed to grade level work. But then when it comes down to independent work, or even a part where it's still scaffolded, there are certain students that just aren't ready for this. And it wouldn't be respectful of me to expect them to do that work. So then I might have an activity that looks very much the same, but if everybody else has moved on to the AI/AY, I still might have a few students who need more practice just being able to identify their letters, their letter sounds, or maybe they're just bridging into the CVC level. Mm-hmm. And I try and have similar looking games, similar looking word mapping activities. Mm-hmm. And those kids I might pull them to a side table to work with them while everybody else does a different activity. Yeah.
That's great, because it is important that we do have that differentiation. And as a teacher with a combined grade, you're going, and in these early years, I mean, it's good, but it's also difficult because you have such a range of skills when you're looking at 24 months between, the potential oldest and the potential youngest in your classroom.
Yeah.
And the exposures, especially with these past couple of years, with the COVID, online learning, distributed learning, no learning, depending where they're at. And it was such a critical stage for these students. So, I mean, your grade 2s missed a third of kindergarten.
Yeah. And then I would say some of them are missing quite a bit more too, because each time you have the sniffles, you're staying home, and and some kids are just more prone to that than others. And yeah, there's some kids who are missing 2 weeks at a time here, and then the next month it's another week, and that accumulates for sure.
It does, and it's hard. So we definitely need to make sure that the time that we do have with them is getting those skills established. And all the tools and the resources that you shared with us definitely are amazing and worth looking into more. Do you have any other things that you find to be really effective in your classroom when it comes to reading instruction and literacy?
Just thinking more about the orthographic mapping kind of ideas. I've got something here that I think the website is Sparklebox, and they've got these great lines, grass line, sky line, and dirt line for printing practice, which is for some kids still really, really, really important. And, I can just put out some CVC pictures. I have little baggies of CVC pictures, and a student can pull one out and then maybe use a little manipulative to map the sounds in it and then practice writing it. And then I've put an image up here where it shows you where to start the letter when you're forming the letter. And these are just in dry erase sleeves.
I love those envelopes. They are very
they are great, good for the environment, and you can use your dry erase marker, erase, it's fabulous. These ones are just Amazon and they've held up quite well, so I'm liking those.
Well, and it means that you're not laminating all the time and cutting out, and allows you to be more fluid with who gets what. I mean, I've seen teachers just put masking tape with each student's name on that, and then you can individualize different activities for them if you have the time to sort things.
So that's something that maybe some of my students who are still working at that CVC level might be working with, and just getting to write on those is pretty exciting for a lot of them. I have been following along with the heart word method. So those words that are more irregular, or maybe are irregular to them because I haven't necessarily taught a certain pattern yet. So I'll explain that you will learn this later, but for now we'll just follow the heart word method. One thing that we like to do is, all the words that we've done, I've printed the words, and as I've introduced them, I just keep adding them to the stack, and I just use a red pen and draw the heart where it would be. I keep this again right by my teaching area, and then whenever we've got those 2 minutes, an activity that we've been doing with these that they absolutely love is I put them down so I don't see what's coming. And then I just pick one up so that I don't see what it is, and I hold it up, and then the kids have to give me clues. And so they could tell me what it rhymes with, or if it has a digraph, or what is the heart part. And then I have to guess. And now that the stack is growing, it takes me a little longer to guess, but then that just means they have to give me better clues. So it's a repeated exposure for those kids who need to see the heart word more than a few times. And it gives them more opportunity to talk about the word and dissect the word, to analyze it, I guess. So that's a really great one for using your heart words. And then I have a little list of some websites if you want to talk about those.
Yeah, but can we just go into, not everybody knows about heart words.
Okay.
So can we just talk about a little bit more about what they are and how they use them? And I remember yesterday you spoke about how you went through like the Dolch sight word list and ordered them and sequenced them just so that you could know where they fit in your scope and sequence. So do you want to just dive into that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, so a lot of the Dolch words, most of the Dolch words are decodable, so long as you have learned the patterns. And so I've tried to sort them based on that. And then there are some words that maybe those kids, especially in grade 1, aren't going to necessarily be explicitly taught that pattern quite yet. And then there's those few that are just unusual words. Or irregular, I shouldn't say unusual. And so if you were going to introduce a word using the heart word method, you would, I'm just going to go with said. That was the first one. You might use your Elkonin boxes. You might start by just saying, today's word is said. How many sounds in said? And then you would count out your 3 sounds. So yes, there are 3 sounds. I'm going to use 3 boxes. And then I might focus on what would we normally use to spell the S? How would we normally spell the D? And then I might draw a heart over the middle box and say, this is the part that we have to know by heart. This is the unusual part. And then I will explain to them that in this case, we hear but we're going to spell it as AI.
Mm-hmm.
And then we might look at other words that are similar, like again. And it just helps them understand that they just have to remember certain parts of it, because the other parts are expected. And there's just that one little bit, or sometimes multiple little bits that they have to know. But then you can also add in, like when we did the number 2, I was able to explain why the number 2 is spelled with a W. Mm-hmm. And if you go twice and twin, that 2 makes more sense. Mm-hmm. Or the number 1, if you do the whole thing about, well, if you know how to spell alone or lonely, the number 1 makes more sense. And it helps them remember it a bit.
Yeah, and I think it's very helpful to have those ties ins that you can pull on when you understand a little bit more about the etymology or the history of the word. Yeah. And, these are just the little factoids that you pick up over time. And if you have a little notebook or something that you can keep them in to just reference, because these, again, just like the vocabulary, they're the things that kids pick up on. And, one of the difficulties, and it's not quite grade 1, 2 level, but looking at there, and there.
Yes.
And understanding the difference between them. And, there's great little pictures that you can see on Pinterest, but understanding the link between here, there, and where, and you all have the here in that word. Those are the helpful tidbits that you can throw in. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing that word study approach.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I can't quite remember the name of that website, but I do have an etymology website that's just under my favorites tab. And when I
Is it the etymology online?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And then I can just quickly look something up. And another good resource when you're doing heart words is the Heart Word Magic a website. Then you can just look up. There's a quick little video, if you're going to teach could or would. They don't have all the words, but there's probably 20, 25 little videos up there that you can just use when you're after I have taught it to them explicitly. Then I could say on the day 2, remember yesterday we learned that word, then watch the video so that they hear it again, but from someone's voice other than mine.
Yeah, and I think having that digital component is important in the classroom, because in reality, that's the world that these children have grown up in and living in, and watching those videos and getting the engagement is something that we have to be realistic and realize that that's just how things are happening these days.
And they're short, it's 2 minutes. It's not like we're sitting down to watch a movie or anything. It's just like little, and it's purposeful. It's integrated with what we're doing. It matches what we're doing. So I feel like it's a good use of time.
Yeah, of course.
And then another one that I like a lot for introducing little bits and bobs is the Nessie YouTube channel. So it's Nessie, and then I think associated with Nessie is Go Harry. But it's a YouTube channel. And again, if you're teaching our controlled vowels, I was doing that recently. They've got just, it's like a 1.5 minute little video, and little visuals explaining, explaining the pattern. The kids attached to it, they laugh, they're funny little videos. There's a good one about, never a V without an E at the end of a word. The video for that one, again, it's like 1.5 minutes, but the V, because it's pointy on the bottom, keeps falling over and needs the E to hold it up. I have kids in my class they will laugh at that still. They probably saw that movie, 5 months ago, and still when they write it, they'll be like, it'll fall over, and they laugh. They think just freaks that 1 minute video, right?
And if that 1 minute improves their spelling that much and it sticks in their head, for it.
Yes. Yeah. They're cute, funny little bits that So I try and find, if I'm introducing a new phonics skill, a new pattern, right away I go to Nessie and see, do they have anything on this? And I'm disappointed if they don't, but they more often than not do have something that will work.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So those would be the websites I might use in the class, is the Heart Word Magic and then the Nessie. But then for myself, when I'm looking at resources, especially in the beginning, and especially for those students, when I'm trying to differentiate and find things that are specific for my students who are struggling a bit more, I really like the West Virginia phonics lessons. Those are quite explicit, especially when you're first beginning, because they give you a lot of, in their lesson sequence, it'll say, 2 minutes of a little warm up where this is your phonological awareness warm up. And then you're moving into your targeted skill and you're going to introduce that skill. You're going to review a little bit from yesterday's lesson, and it's all right there for you. They give you the words. If there's word chaining, the word chaining list is there. So yeah, the West Virginia phonics lessons are useful. The UFly website, the University of Florida Literacy Institute, and the Florida Center for Reading Research, they both have quite a bit of free resources that are great for teachers. I also like the IMSE link tree. So that's the Institute of Multisensory Education. And if you just Google IMSE link tree, they have a wealth of information, and a lot of it's digital. So back to that integrated portion, if I was doing my AI and my AY, they likely have a slide deck, so a Google slide deck of, I think they call it a blending drill, but when you open it up, each slide you progress through will have like a little character that moves along the word. So if the word were play, it would start with the P, and then you move the slide and it moves to the L. So as you go, the kids would say, oh, and then the AY, when the little character ends up underneath the AY, they say AY. And it's just controlled by me. It's a slide deck that I'm controlling, but it's already pre-made by IMSE. And they've got quite a few other things on there that are free, like just visuals that I have printed off and in my room, like when you're talking about when to use a K versus a C, or when to use a CK, they've got some visuals like that you can print off and just have in color up in your room. So that's been useful for me. And of course, this year Flyleaf had a lot of their decodable books, or all of their decodable books, digitally for free. I don't know if they intend to do that next year.
Yes, they do.
Okay. That's been a fabulous resource as well.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is so encouraging is realizing that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many great resources out there. And like I remember in the teacher education program, it's all about, you need to create this, you need to create that. And I think when right now there's such a steep learning curve and time is so precious, it's better to go and find the resources that are made and available, so you're not having to spend the time to create those slide decks with the graphics that are engaging when it's already done and available for you to use. It's going to have your students engaged. It's going to give you the opportunity to focus on your learning and giving you that spare time and instead of spending, half an hour at night rushing, creating all these interactive activities, you've got it lined up, you've got it set up, and you're good to go. One of the things, I know it's kind of off topic, but you mentioned all of these great resources and websites. And I know a way that I personally find it helpful to keep it all organized is in a Microsoft OneNote document. Right. So you can do it by topic, and then you're not constantly, I had that last year and it was good. Where was it? Just creating that so you have it to access.
And that's a big part of it, is where did I save that document? I think I have it. So yes, staying organized and just managing your resources once you start to accumulate them, remembering where they are. So yes, having one spot to keep it is priceless.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Shawna. You've shown some amazing resources, and your students are definitely lucky to have you as a teacher because you've got this down. Like you've got your resources, and they're very fortunate.
Thank you very much.
And for those of you listening, if you haven't done so already, make sure to like and subscribe to the Right to Read Initiative YouTube channel or podcast, and join the Right to Read Initiative Facebook group where we have these conversations and resources available to you.